ଜାଣିଛି ତ ମତେ ବହୁତ ମନ କରେ ସେ ବନେଇଲେ ରୋଷେଇ କରିକି କେତେବେଳେ ଆସିଲା ଆସିଲା ସାଢେ 6ଟା ମତେ କଲ୍ କରିଥିଲା ଆଜି ମୁଁ ମେଟ୍ରୋରେ ଯାଉଥିଲି ଗୋଟେ ପିଲା ମତେ ସେତେବେଳେ ଅନଉଛି ହେଲା ମତେ ଡାଉଟ ହେଲେ କି ମତେ ମତେ ତ ଭଲ ବି ଦେଖାଯାଉନି ହେଲା ତାପରେ ଗୋଟେ ଆଣ୍ଟିଟେ ଥିଲା ତାକୁ ବସେଇଲା ହେଲା ତାପରେ ମୋ ସାମ୍ନାରେ ଆସି ଛିଡା ହେଇଗଲା ଛିଡା ହେଇଗଲା ମୁଁ କିଛି କହୁନି ମୋର ଗୀତ ଶୁଣୁଛି ତାର ପୁଣି ସେ ଆଣ୍ଟି ପଳେଇଲେ ସେ ପୁଣି ବସିଲା ତାପରେ ମତେ ଡାକିଲା କହିଲା ଆପକୁ बैठना ମୁଁ କହିଲି ନାଇଁ ତାପରେ ଆମେ ସେମ ଜାଗାରେ ଓହ୍ଲେଇଲୁ ତାପରେ ସେଇଠୁ ସିଏ କଣ ପଚାରିଲା ମୋ ଶୁଭା ଗଲାଣି କଣ ପଚାରିଲା ଏଇଟା କୋଉଠି ଅଛି ମୁଁ କହିଲି ମୁଁ ଜାଣିନି କହିଲା you put it here ମୁଁ କହିଲି no ତାପରେ ମୁଁ ଦୌଡ଼ିକି ପଳେଇଲି ମତେ ଭୟ ହେଲା କହିଲେ ନମ୍ବର ମାଗିବା ଯଦି କଣ କରିବି ଭଲ ଆକ୍ଚୁଆଲି ଦେଖା ଯାଉଥିଲା ଭଲ ଦେଖା ହଉଥିଲା କିନ୍ତୁ ସେ କଥା ଆରମ୍ଭ ଦାନ୍ତ ଭଲ ନଥିଲା ତ ମତେ ଭଲ ଲାଗିଲାନି ଏଇଟା ସବୁଠାରୁ ଫେଭରେଟ ମୋର ଦିନେ ଏଇଟା ପ୍ୟାଣ୍ଟଟା if you want to borrow you can borrow sometimes not every time दिले नादान तुझे हुआ ପିନ୍ଧିକି ଆସିବ ତାପରେ ଜଣା ପଡିବ ନାଇଁ ସବୁଟା ଦେଖେଇଦେ ମୁଁ ଏବେ ମୋର ପଢିବି ମାନେ ବହୁତ ତୋର ସକାଳେ ଗଲି ସେ ବୋରିଂ ଜିନିଷ ଶୁଣିବା ପାଇଁ ଏଇଟା ହେଲା ଗୋଟେ ଏଇଟା ହେଲା ଗୋଟେ ହେଲା ବେଳେ ବେଳେ ପିନ୍ଧିବୁ ନହେଲେ ମରିଯିବ ବେଳେ ବେଳେ ହିଁ ପିନ୍ଧି ହ୍ୱାଇଟ ମୁଁ କଣ ମତେ ଆକ୍ଚୁଆଲି ହ୍ୱାଇଟ ଦରକାର ଥିଲା ମତେ ଆଜିକାଲି ହ୍ୱାଇଟ କାହିଁ ଭଲ ଲାଗୁଛି କାରଣ କଳାଟା ମୁଁ ହ୍ୱାଇଟ ପଳେଇ ଆସିଲି ଏଇଟା ଘର ପିନ୍ଧା ପ୍ୟାଣ୍ଟ ଗୁଡା ମୁଁ ସବୁ ମୋର କୋଉଠି ଗୋଟେ କଣା ହେଇଯାଇଛି କୋଉଠି ଚିରି ହେଇଛି ସେଟା ସବୁ ଦେଇଦେବି ଏଇଟା ହେଲା ପ୍ଲେନ କଲର ନେଇକି ଆସିଲି ତାକି ବାହାରେ ସେପଟୁ କୋଉଠି ଯା ଆହୁରି ମୁଁ ପ୍ୟାଣ୍ଟ କିଣିକି ଆଣିଛି ମାନେ ବହୁତ ପ୍ୟାଣ୍ଟ କିଣିକି ଆଣିଛି କହିଲେ ମୁଁ ଏକାଥରେ ପ୍ୟାଣ୍ଟ କିଣିବି ସବୁ ଢିଲା ଢାଲା ପ୍ୟାଣ୍ଟ ନେଇକି ଆସିଛି ତାଇ ଚିରିବନି ଏଇଟା ଗୋଟେ କୋଉଟା ଘର ପିନ୍ଧା ଆଉ କୋଉଟା ଏଇଟା ଖାଲି ଘର ପିନ୍ଧା ତିନିଟା ଜଣା ପଡିବ ବୋଧେ କାହିଁ ଜଣା ପଡିବନି ମେଟେରିଆଲ ଏଇଟା ଗୋଟେ ପ୍ୟାଣ୍ଟ ହଁ ଏଇଟା ବାହାରେ ପିନ୍ଧା ଏଇଟା ବି ଗୋଟେ ବ୍ଲାକ କଲର ନେଇ ଆସିଛନ୍ତି ଢିଲା ଢାଲା ପ୍ୟାଣ୍ଟ ଗୁଡା ଏବେ ବହୁତ ଗରମ ହଉଛି ଏବେ ଆଉ ଜିନ୍ସ କିଏ ପିନ୍ଧନ୍ତି ଏବେ ପ୍ୟାଣ୍ଟ ସବୁ ଚାଲିଛି ଏଇଟା ଗୋଟେ ସାର୍ଟ ମୁଁ ଦୂରରୁ ବହୁତ ଭଲ ଲାଗିଲା ମୁଁ ନେଇ ଆସେ ସାର୍ଟ ଗୁଡା ବି ଟାଇଟ୍ ହଉଛି ନା ଏଇଟା ମତେ କାଟିବ ଟିକେ ବୋଧେ କେତେ ଲାଗୁଛି ଭଲ କାଟିବାକୁ ପଡିବ ସେତିକି ତ ଲମ୍ବା ନା ଏଇଟା ଆକ୍ଚୁଆଲି ଟିକେ କାଟିବାକୁ ପଡିବ ଏଇଟା ଏମିତି ହେଇକି ଏମିତି ବଲ୍ସ ହେଇକି ଏମିତି ହେଇଯିବ ପିନ୍ଧିକି ଜଣା ପଡିବ ଆହୁରି ପ୍ୟାଣ୍ଟ ମୁଁ ନେଇ ଆସିଛି ପୁଳା ଯାହା ପ୍ୟାଣ୍ଟ ଡିସକାର୍ଡ କରିବି ପୁଣି ନେବୁ ମତେ ଆସିବ ମତେ ହଉନି ଏଇଟା ସବୁ ମୁଁ କଣ ଆଣିଛି ଫିତା ବାଲା ପ୍ୟାଣ୍ଟ ସବୁ ଦେଖିକି ଏଇଟା ସବୁ ଘର ପିନ୍ଧା ନା ଏଇଟା ବାହାର ପିନ୍ଧାରେ ବାପା ଘର ପିନ୍ଧା ମାନେ ଦେଖା ହଉଛି ଯେ କିନ୍ତୁ ଏଇଟା ବାହାର ପିନ୍ଧାଟା ନାଇଁ ଏଇ ଛୋଟ ବାହାର ଘର ପିନ୍ଧା ପରିକା ଦେଖାଯାଉନି ଛୋଟ ପ୍ୟାଣ୍ଟ ଗୁଡା ପିନ୍ଧୁନା ତ ସେଥିଲାଗି କହୁଛି ଏମିତି ରହୁଛି ଆଜିକାଲି ସବୁ। ଏଇଟା ଗୋଟେ କଳା ପ୍ୟାଣ୍ଟ ଏଇଟା ଗୋଟେ ଡିଫରେଣ୍ଟ କଲର ମୁଁ ନେଇ ଆସିଲି।
ବର୍ଷେ ପର୍ଯ୍ୟନ୍ତ ଆଉ ହବାର ନାହିଁ।
ଏଇଟା ଭଲ ଅଛି ନା ସବୁବେଳେ ଏମିତି ଏମିତି ଲାଇନ ଥାଏ ମୁଁ ଏମିତି ଲମ୍ବା ଲାଇନ ଆଣିଛି ଏଇଥିରେ କଣ ଲମ୍ବା ଲାଇନ ଟା ତମେ ବେଶୀ ପତଳା ଦେଖା ଭଲ କଣ ସାର୍ଟଟା ଆଉ ଗୋଟେ ଏଇଟା ଗୋଟେ ଉଠେଇକି ନେଇ ଆସିବି ହ୍ୱାଇଟ ସାର୍ଟ କହିଲେ ନା ତ ହ୍ୱାଇଟ ବହୁତ ଭଲ ଲାଗୁଛି କେମିତି ଲାଗୁଛି ଏଇଟା ଭଲନି ପାଟର୍ନ ଟା ଭଲନି ସରିଲା ତ ପଇସା ଏତେ ଖୁସି ଲାଗୁଛି ମତେ କିଣିକି ମାନେ ଏତେ ଖୁସି ହେଲି ତାର ଦେବାଙ୍ଗୀ ମତେ କଲ୍ କଲା कहाँ है ମୁଁ କହିଲି मैं सरोजिनी मोर तू अकेले चली गई साला ମୁଁ ଏଇ ମାନଙ୍କ ସହିତ ଗଲେ ଯେତିକି ମତେ ଲେଟ୍ ହେଲା ତାର ଡବଲ ଲେଟ୍ ହେଇଗଲା ମୁଁ ସେଇଟା ସବୁ ଦେଖୁନି ମାନେ ଏତେ ଭିଡ ସାଟରଡେ ନା ବହୁତ ଭିଡ ତାପରେ ମୋ ସାମ୍ନାରେ ଶଳା ସେ କପଲ ଯୁଆଡେ ଗଲେ କପଲ ଆଜିକାଲି ଏତେ କପଲ ଦେଖାଉଛନ୍ତି ଚାରିଆଡେ ସେ ମୁଣ୍ଡ ଗରମ ହଉଛି ଏବେ ମୁଁ ସବୁ ଟ୍ରାଏ କରିଦିଏ ମତେ ହଉଛି ନା ନାହିଁ ନହେଲେ ଟିକେ ନାକୁ ମତେ ୱେଟ ଲୁଜ କରିବାକୁ ପଡିବ ମାସରେ
ତାହେଲେ ଫେର ଥରେ ତୋର ପ୍ୟାଣ୍ଟ ସ୍କାର୍ସିଟି ହେଇଯିବ ଆସନ୍ତା ମାସ
କାହିଁକି ସ୍କାର୍ସିଟି ହବ
ଆଜି
ମୁଁ ସେ ପ୍ୟାଣ୍ଟ ଗୁଡା କେବେ ଲାଷ୍ଟ ଜିନ୍ସ ଗୁଡା ନାନୀ ଯାହା ଦେଲା ମତେ ଗଲା ବେଳେ ତାର ସେ ଜିନ୍ସ ଗୁଡା କିଛି ମାନେ ଗୋଟେ ମାନସ ବି ଦେଲେ ସେଠି ମାନେ ଏଇଠି କଣ ଗୋଟେ ରଙ୍ଗ ଲାଗେ ସେଇଟା ହଉନି ମତେ ତାପରେ ନାନୀ ଗୋଟେ ଦେଲା ବେଲ ବଟମ ସେ କେମିତିଆ ପ୍ୟାଣ୍ଟ ସବୁ କିଣିକି ଆଣି ସେ ଏଇ ଜାଗା ତା ଏଇ ସବୁ ଜିନିଷ ଗୋଟେ ସରୁ ନା ମତେ ସେଇଟା ମୋର ଏଇଟା ମୋଟା ଗୁଡା ମତେ ହଉନି ଏଇଠି ବାନ୍ଧିଲା ବେଳେ ତ ଏଇଟା ହଉନି ଏଇଟା ମୋର ପେଟ ଛୁଲିକିନା ବାହାରିଛି ନା ଏଇଠି
କେଡେ ସୁନ୍ଦର ଭିତରକୁ ପଶି ଯାଇଛି
ସମସ୍ତେ ଭାବୁଛ ଭାତ ଖାଇବି ଆଜି ମୁଁ କଣ ଖାଲି ମ୍ୟାଗି ଖାଇଛି ପୁରା ଦିନରେ ଖାଇବି ଟିକେ ପରେ ଏବେ ସବୁ ଟ୍ରାଏ କରିକି ଦେଖିବି ତାଳ ମାଳେ କଣ ଖାଇଲୁ ଲଞ୍ଚ ରେ ତୁ
ଲଞ୍ଚ ରେ ସେ ନବରାତ୍ରି ଥାଲି ଗୋଟେ ଥିଲା
ଯାହା ମତେ ଚିକେନ ମଟନ ବାଡେଇକୁ କାଳେ
ସେଠି ଗୋଟେ କଲୁ କହିଲା ପିଆଜ ରସୁଣ ବି ନଥିଲେ ଭଲ ହବ କୋଉଠି ହୋଟେଲ ଆଣିବେ ପିଆଜ ରସୁଣ ନଥାଇକି
କିଏ କହିଲା ପିଆଜ ରସୁଣ
ସେଠି ଗୋଟେ ଲୋକଟା ନଥିଲା
ସେ ଯୋଉ ତମ ସଞ୍ଜୟ ନା କଣ
ନା ସେ ନାହିଁ ସେ ଆର ଗୋଟେ
ସୁନିଲ
ବୁଢା
ଯୋଉ ମିନିଷ୍ଟ୍ରି ଅଫ
MSME
ଏମଏସଏମଇ ପୁରା ଠକିଲା ଭଳିଆ ଲାଗୁଥିଲା ସେ ଫାଷ୍ଟ ଯିଏ କହିଲେ ସାଲିନ ମତେ ବହୁତ ଭଲ ଲାଗିଲା ତା କଥା ଗୁଡା ମୁଁ କହିଲି ଆରେ ଏଇଗୁଡା ତ ସବୁ ମୁଁ କହିଲି ଏଇ ଆର୍ଟିସାନ ମାନଙ୍କର ଅନଲାଇନ ମାର୍କେଟିଂ କରିବେ ହେଲା ତାପରେ ସିଏ ଆସିଲେ ତା କଥା ମତେ କିଛି ବୁଝା ପଡିଲାନି କଣ କହୁଛି ତାର ମୋର ଇଣ୍ଟରେଷ୍ଟ ଏମିତି ପଳେଇଲା ତାପରେ ତୁ ଆସିଲୁ ପୁରା ଡରି ମରିକି ଆଉ ମତେ ବହୁତ ଚିଡେ ଲାଗିଲା ସେଇ ଟାଇମରେ ସେ ଝିଅଟାକୁ ଯିବାର ଥିଲା ମୁଁ କହିଲି କାହିଁ ଏବେ ଗଲୁ ତୁ ବସିଥାନ୍ତୁ ଟିକେ ଦେରି ଗଲାବେଳେ ସେ ଯୋଉ ଝକଡ ବକଡ ହେଲା ସେଇ ଟାଇମରେ ମୁଁ କହିଲି କଣ ଏଇଟା ଶୁଣୁନାହାନ୍ତି ନା କଣ ଗୋଟେ ସବୁ ମୁଁ ଟିକେ ଟିକେ ଏମିତି ଫାଳେ 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 ଉଠୁଛି ଗୋଟେ ଏପଟ ଆଙ୍ଗେଲ ରୁ ଗୋଟେ ଏପଟ ଆଙ୍ଗେଲ ରୁ ସବୁ ଡ୍ରାଇଭର ପକେଇ ଡ୍ରାଇଭ ଚେଞ୍ଜ କରିଦିଅ ହେଲା ହଉ ମାରେ ମତେ ଟିକେ ଗେଲ ଦେ
ମୁଁ ଏଇଟା ପଢି ସାରେ ତାପରେ
କଣ ପଢିସା ଛିଡା ହେଇଥିବି ନା ତୁ ପଢିଲା
ଯା ତୁ ଟ୍ରାଏ କରିକିରି ଆସେ ମତେ ସେଇଟା ଗୋଟେ ଏଂଜାଇଟି ହେଇଗଲାଣି ତାର ହବ ନା ନାଇଁ
ହବ ନା ନାଇଁ କାରଣ କେତେ ମୋଟା ତ ଦେଖା ହଉଛି ବହୁତ ମୋଟା ହେଇଯାଇଛି ନା କଣ ଭାଇ ମେଟ୍ରୋରେ ଆଜି ମୋ ସାଙ୍ଗରେ ଗୋଟେ ଝିଅଟେ ଥିଲା ମୁଁ ଏତେ ମୋଟା ନୁହେଁ ହେଲା ମତେ କଣ ଆଗରୁ କେତେ ଥିଲି ଡବା ଭଳିଆ ସିଏ ଭାଇ ସିଏ ତ ମୁଁ ଯେତିକି ଥିଲି ତା ଡବଲ ଥିଲା ସିଏ ଭାବେ ସିଏ ଥିଲା ମୋ ସାମ୍ନାରେ ଛିଡା ହେଇଛି ଏମିତି ଥିଲା ତାର ହାତର ଏମିତି ଥିଲା ଦେହ ଠିକ ଥିଲା ତାର ଏମିତି ପିଚାଟା ଏମିତି ହେଇଛି ହେଲା ଆଉ ଏମିତି ସେ ଛିଡା ହେଇଛି ଆଉ ଭାରି ଅସନା ଅସନା ମତେ ଟିକେ ଦେଖା ହଉଥିଲା ସେ ମୁଁ ତାକୁ ଏମିତି ଅନେଇଲି ଆଉ ନିଜ କନି ମୁଁ କେତେ ମୋଟା ଅଛି ତାପରେ ଆଗରୁ नजमा से यार नजमा एक बात बता मैं उसकी तरह मोटू अरे नहीं यार तू उतनी मोटी नहीं उसकी तरह नहीं नहीं उसकी तरह नहीं सब बेसी मोटा मानू देखो लाइट लिवे दो रेडी अच्छा मो बाबू जा रेडी अच्छा मो बाबू
This is chapter 2. Hello. And this is Thaddeus Lawrence Runaway Success. He, as I shared in the earlier video also, he ran 4 deserts, coldest, humidest, and warmest, and the Gobi Desert. So we'll be studying about the Gobi Desert, which is called as the oven. So let us start reading about the desert. So the chapter 3, Gobi, the oven, facing to finish. 27 June to 3rd July 2010. There are those days in life that just stick out in our mind. They are the ones that our brain files under its bookmarks or favorites to become indelible memories. These may be glorious moments worthy of a lifetime of celebration and reminiscence, or heroic times to be so awful they leave an immemorial mark. Stage 4 of the Gobi March is one of those later days. The ominous name of this stage, Flaming Mountains, give us a clue of what to expect of this relatively short 36-kilometer section that takes us into the heart of the Turpan Basin. Covering an area of 50,000 square kilometers, the Turpan Basin is the second lowest exposed place on Earth. It is surrounded by mountain ranges, including the central Tian Shan, and has a very terrain of salt flats, sand dunes, pioneers, and places. But who betide anyone who makes light of this beautiful region? Its hot and arid continental climate has earned it the potent moniker, the oven. The previous stage ends in an Uyghur village where the icy cold waters of a river provide much relief for our aching muscles and a heavenly opportunity to rinse out clothing. Because of the long daylight hours, we treat ourselves to an extended lounge and soak in the tranquility of the area. It is a positively divine and does wonders for our spirits. The villagers have generously opened up their homes for us to spend the night and the relative luxury of sleeping on a rug-lined floor in one that we all relish. I fervently hope that it will be warmer this evening after the bone-rattling chill of the previous 2 nights. But good things come with a price. Dusk brings news from the race organizers that buses will take us for an hour-long ride to the start line of stage 4 in the morning. Departure time is 4 a.m., which means getting up at 2:30 a.m. to check and pack our gear, make and eat breakfast, and do any last-minute preparations. How wonderful. There are rumblings of discontent. Some bemoan the early start. Others shake their heads at the idea of having to be transported to a different start line. To make matters worse, stifling heat, be careful what you ask for. Bleating goats and the late night revelry of our hosts make for a poor night's sleep. In the blackness of the morning, my body protests at being dragged out of bed. It sulks silently through breakfast, and I have to force feed myself the necessary calories in between yearns. Before long, we bound the waiting buses and police motorcycle outriders escort us to our destination. Were it not for my disquieting anticipation of the day's course and a discomforting bloated stomach, I would have realized the VIP treatment. A local mayor is over the moon that an international cast of athletes has chosen his region to pit themselves against one another in a mad race. He is only too willing to accommodate us and make sure that our stay is a smooth one. At the start line, the piercing light of over 150 head torches puncture the darkness to reveal the famous grape vineyards of the Turpan. Amid the cacophony of voices and reverberating sounds of the river, I search for a pocket of mental space to clear my head. I do not feel right. The early morning rise and bland breakfast do not sit well with me, and I am suffering the effects of yet another sleepless night. Feeling more than a little irate, I am also troubled by a nagging sense of something being out of place. I cannot quite put my finger on what it is, but I am not looking forward to this stage. Although tiring, the early start does afford some bearable temperatures of the first couple of hours to checkpoint 1. The 13.5 kilometers takes place mostly along dirt, rock, and gravel tracks used primarily by earth movers and big lorries transporting sand. These and the electricity pylons stretching into the distance are the only signs of human life in a desolate region. The lack of gradient and relatively cool air are an advantage, but my legs just refuse to get going properly, and I struggle at a less than decent pace. Well before 9 a.m., I am forced to tuck into my 11s, hoping that the Japanese rice crackers and bakwa will improve my morale somewhat. They do, and I stroll into checkpoint. I am at checkpoint 1, my spirit slowly rising with the sun. After the first checkpoint, the ground begins to change and the desert proper begins. I managed to put behind my earlier sluggishness and pick up momentum with about 5 kilometers of steady running. This is my best period of the entire day as I skip along the exchange banner with other competitors, smiling my effervescent smile. I am going at a good clip and eager to make up for the lost time. It seems like I have put the worst of a poor start and morning behind me, and the day will only get better from here on. I am about to be proved spectacularly wrong. Heat takes its toll. Halfway into the section, the sand dunes hit, and they hit with a fury. A series of never-ending dunes beginning with a massive sand hill, followed by a succession of smaller ones that keep going up and up and up. They suck my breath away, and I feel as if I am being punished for my earlier exuberance. The view of red scorched earth all around us must be arresting, but I am not in a state to appreciate it. The sun is now at its zenith and will stay there for the next several hours. Meanwhile, the still air hovers like a heavy cotton, dampening my mood. Its dryness sucking precious moisture from my body. It is beginning to be clear why this region is nicknamed the oven. My mind wanders briefly to home and I flirt with the fantasy of tucking into a hearty home cooked spread. But the daydream is brief. I am yanked back to reality by the furious protest of my leg muscles. They force me to slow to a labored crawl. Somehow I managed to collapse into a checkpoint 2, gasping for breath. I am not the only one in agony. For the first time in this race, I see competitor take a lengthy rest at a checkpoint. We hope that the terrain ahead will be a little more forgiving. But our real problems are only just beginning. The final section to camp is accurately rated as difficult, but no one could have anticipated what lay ahead for us. Leaving checkpoint 2, the route continues upward across an open plain of soft and hardened sand and then winds its way steeply up a wind-blasted mountain. From here, We have to repeatedly climb down and back up tight valleys until we eventually descend into hell. As someone would later describe it, imagine a funnel and you are at the bottom where the sandy track is about a meter wide and the sheer walls of the funnel are about 2 stories tall. We are in the windless gullies where the bases of mountains of rock come together to form a tight trough that goes on and on and on. We have no idea where we are and how long the maze of zigzag gullies goes on for. The only way out is to follow the path marked by the pink markers. Good luck to those who miss a marker and take a wrong turn. The front runners would have arrived here at the best part of the day, early enough to enjoy sunshade. For the rest of us here, when the sun is glaring its hottest, we bear the brunt of its brutality. There is no respite from the torrid heat and not a silver of shade. The hot air bounces off the narrow walls and creates a tunnel of simmering, scorching atmosphere. It is a heat trap and we are literally baking. People are getting into all sorts of trouble and distress. I pass competitors being sick and vomiting. Some have run out of water and are severely dehydrated. Others are dizzy from heat exhaustion and slurring. This is a sure sign of heat stroke. It is getting serious out here. The problem is further compounded by the fact that there is no knowing how far we are from the end. The deep maze of gullies seem to go on forever and the winding path turn left or right every few meters. It is enough to induce claustrophobia, generate an evolutionary fear of being trapped, and drive anyone mad. I speed up occasionally, not so much to change race tactics as to hurriedly flee the place. My attempts are desperate and wild. There is no end in sight and no way out. It is a terrifying 2.5 hours. Camp, when it finally arrives, is an old museum. Think giant sandcastle. Aptly named Uyghur Ghost Town. The whole place resembles a prisoner of war camp, a field hospital, and a disaster response control center all roll into one. The walking wounded are everywhere. After 3 days of dealing with nothing more than blisters and scrapes, the doctors are literally rushed off their feet, scrambling up the mountain to give medical help and administer intravenous drips to those in serious danger. Volunteers are similarly in full rescue mode, frantically filling backpacks with bottles of extra water to bring up to the strugglers. 10 hours into the race and in temperature tipping 45 degrees Celsius, there are still competitors out on the course and out of water. Things do not look good at all. News of an emergency evacuation filters through. This changes the whole tone of the race. We huddle to talk, but without concrete facts or official announcements. Our information is mere conjecture. Who is the competitor? Is he conscious? Why is there no communication from the staff? Tensions run high, and our speculation seems to compound the magnitude of the problem, so I decide to abstain from further stirring the pot. I chat in hustled tones with Patrick, a Hong Kong-based Singaporean, and we decide to spend our energy replenishing our fluids instead. We agree that if the years serving our national service in the Singapore Army had taught us anything, it is the usefulness of the water parade and powder shower. A water parade is where soldiers assemble and drink a whole water bottle of water. Come to think of it, the scene resembles that of a Chinese wedding dinner. Only instead of downing mugs of beer or glasses of whiskey, we quaff water. The powder shower takes place out in the field, and the absence of water to shower in, we liberally sprinkle deep heat powder in an effort to curb heat rashes. In the midst of our uneasiness emerges the tremendous Spirit Day Corps for which such races have earned a reputation. People gather at different lookout points to keep an eye out for those yet to return. Others offer to head back out onto the course. We deliver first aid equipment and water. Many more say a silent prayer.
The entire afternoon seems to drag on forever, and I had to the media tent to read emails from home. Their innocent messages uplift me. I can feel their energy and joy. They tell me there that whatever happens, I am already a hero in their eyes. They tell me how proud they are of me. I suppress a few tears. I needed to hear that. My spirits need fortifying more so than ever before. I value the love that is being sent me from afar, from my parents, girlfriend, friends, colleagues, and even strangers. I am moved that through all these, there are people who have me in their thoughts and hearts. I am choked up feeling their words of encouragement and faith in me. I thank God for them and for delivering me safely into camp. I know it could so easily be me still out on the course and in a far worse condition. As the remaining competitors stumble into camp, they are each applauded into a standing ovation. A few tears are shed and hugs linger. To spend 13 or 14 hours out on a hellish course in such appalling conditions takes monumental strength of spirit and lion hearts. Anyone bearing witness to this scene of elite athletes and fully grown adults displaying their emotions and coming together as one cannot help but be moved to salute the tenderness of the human nature. Many of us spend the night sleeping outdoors as a reprieve from the heat. I am more than a little worse for wear, but apart from exhaustion, I am mentally recovering from the unnerving episode in the gullies. The dazzling stars and the magnificent sand cliffs fail to lift the sense of disquiet and foreboding. I question my own mortality and safety. It is a sobering thought, and for the first time, it fully dawns up on me that what we are doing out here is extremely dangerous. The afternoon's demoralizing setback helps to focus my mind. A tragedy can so easily befall anyone at any time. This is no place for a cavalier attitude. I vow not to take any unnecessary gambles and be more attuned to the signals and feedback from my body. It is this and other apprehensive thoughts about what lies in store for us tomorrow that occupy my fragile mind as I drift into an uneasy sleep. Wake up call. Stage 5, dubbed the long stage, does not get off to the best of starts. We are informed of a 6 a.m. flag off, which means waking at 4 a.m. Barely an hour to race start, and in the middle of breakfast, we are told that we may as well go back to bed because the start has been pushed back to 8 a.m. I am not a happy bunny and immensely frustrated. I could have done with that extra sleep, but my bags are already packed, and I now have to recalibrate my food consumption since the calories already consumed at breakfast would not take me through to the afternoon. I plop down on the cold concrete and shut my eyes for another hour, fully dressed in my gear and shoes. The cumulative miles and the unforgiving heat have by now taken their toll, and fragile emotions are on the verge of boiling over. At a somber morning briefing, we are informed that the rescued competitor yesterday has fallen into a coma and is under intensive care in the local hospital. It appears he had started the day with a couple of companions but decided to push on through the stage without them when they opted for a break. It was much later when someone come across him alone and in great discomfort. There is nothing that we can do for him except pray for a full recovery. This is not the kind of announcement we wanted to see us off on the 99-kilometer long stage. We take in the news, and many of us decide, for safety's sake, to take on the stage in groups or pairs. Fortunately, the weather is kind and the hot spell relents. The entire morning is overcast, almost unheard of at this time of year. At one point, I even felt a drop of rain or two. The tension of the previous day dissolves into the cloudy morning as we quickly shrug off our heavy hearts and launch into the day. The route takes us almost immediately across the series of fast-moving streams into deep muddy ditches, through tall bamboo groves and onto rocky sand cliffs. This is followed by several hours of weaving through an Uyghur town and some Han villages. A welcome change from the vast openness of the plains and any one of recent days. Pretty much the entire local population has turned out to line the streets, and we exchange countless high fives with identical looking boys with their ubiquitous crew cut hairstyles and football jerseys. The girls sit next to good-natured elders and beam their sweet, shy smiles. Then it is out along the ancient silk route, past trading posts of beautiful stone and mud brick ruins beside irrigated fields. The sun is somewhat forgiving during this first half of the day, but the wind is not. The lethal breeze dries our sweat instantaneously. While making the heat bearable, it also means we have no conscious idea of how hard our body is working to cool itself. If not monitored properly, we could be in danger of serious dehydration. All is going cheerily, smooth, and soon we leave the hubbub of town and hid back onto rocky, sandy, and salt-encrusted earth, into the second lowest point of earth. The dreariest landscape has the effect of accentuating boredom and heightening the physical burden. When we get to checkpoint 3, the medical crew prohibits my companion Dave O'Brien from proceeding any further until they check his urine. He has not relieved himself since yesterday, and the doctors want to be sure that there is nothing out of order with his kidneys. As I depart, he is chugging down water to fill his bladder. He is a trooper, and I am sure he will be up and running once he gets the all clear. It feels like we are in God-forsaken, windswept middle of nowhere. Competitor Ricky Polk describes the place in his blog. From 30 kilometers to 50 kilometers, the course took us through the Turpan Basin and the town of Turpan. Turpan has the distinction of being further away from a main body of water than any other place on earth. It was dry, hot, and every imaginable shade of brown. There is nothing in Turpan except for dirt. You can stop by the cafe for a dirt sandwich and wash it down with a glass of dirt. Daily chores undoubtedly revolve around shoveling and moving said dirt. Regardless, I started to feel worse for where in between this stretch in all of its uninspiring glory. There is nothing but brown, crusty mounds and iridescent brine pools as far as the eye can see. Someone described it as though heads had plowed the surface and left it to beg for centuries. Suddenly, as if God was listening to our thoughts, the overcast skies dissipate and a clear blue sky with a very hot sun beats down on us. The swiftness and severity of the change is dramatic. Within the space of half an hour, the temperature soars several degrees, and it feels like someone has turned on the heating grills around us. The few competitors I see along the way have their heads down and appear to be in a hypnotic state. Soon I too am diminished into an apathetic torpor. My heavy legs are on autopilot mode, and all I hear is the monotonous sound of my footsteps. Even my usually occupied mind has drained itself of thoughts. I unconsciously start to bang an empty water bottle against my thigh. The echoing sound, a reassuring, urging rhythm. It is close to 10 p.m. when I arrive at checkpoint 6, just in time to watch the sunset on the horizon. A crimson fireball sinking piecemeal onto the purple darkness. The volunteers here are untiring, their inexhaustible energy exuding untold optimism. They have to, for this is the tent for the ailing. 2 competitors are laid off on the stretchers in a deep sleep. IV drips, supplying much needed sustenance into their flaccid bodies. 3 women were poring over their ravaged feet, while a couple of men are just about done retching and throwing up. As I recoil from the horror around me, a Japanese competitor lurches into the tent, wide-eyed and breathless with anxiety and apprehension. He tries to speak in between heaving breaths, but the doctor calms him down enough to extract that she needs to know. Someone is in a bad way not far from the checkpoint and is clearly in need of medical attention. With that, she grabs her medical kit and bounds into a four-wheel drive, a rescue damsel to the distressed. I am surprised not so much at what is happening, but at who have landed themselves in the precarious situation. I glanced around at the poorly ones and find them unfamiliar. That means only one thing. They are the stronger ones who have been miles ahead of me all this time. I am fearful and comforted at the same time. Afraid because if such seasoned and well-trained athletes can end up over the edge, then what more an amateur like myself? Yet I find consolation in my conservative and plodding pace. At least I stay alive and keep myself in one piece, I justify to myself. In the dark, I prepare to push on. I am looking forward to get to checkpoint 7, the overnight stop where hot water is available and makeshift tents are set up for those who wish to get some keep. Every 4 deserts race has such a designated overnight checkpoint. As long as they are within the cutoff times, competitors may choose to have a hot dinner and rest up for a while before continuing on. I am thankful for the company of Aussie competitor Linda Dabley, and together we set off into the night. Nightfall brings with it additional challenges, and having someone alongside me raises my confidence and self-assurance. With our headlamp beams providing the only source of light, our eyes are firmly on the ground to watch where we are going. But due to parallax error, which is the change in the apparent position of an object when the position of the observer changes, it is the nightmare trying to estimate depth and distance, especially when on uneven, rugged ground. In my bumbling tiredness, I feel as if I am pummeling my feet into the hard earth with every step. It is excruciating on my knees, and I curse under my breath at my unsteadiness. To make matters worse, we keep losing sight of the markers and glow sticks. Either the organizers have placed them too far apart, or the lay of the land has shielded them from our sight, or we are simply not paying enough attention to where we are going. In any case, it is disconcerting having to constantly break out stride, the sky and scan all around for the minute neon sign that assures us we are on the right track. Sometimes we even have to run off in several different directions to look. Not only does it lose us precious time, it wastes valuable energy, increases our distance, and piles on enormous stress on our already fragile states. The very thought of having to wait till daybreak to shed light on our location, or worse, being completely lost in the middle of nowhere, spurs us on, those and a grumbling stomach hankering for some hot food. We near a town, and this spells both good and bad news. Good because this indicates we are near the checkpoint. Bad because the local children are fond of the glow sticks and will abscond with them at the slightest opportunity. Whenever the organizers get wind of this, they remark the course. This then leads to another round of filtering, and the entire circle replaces itself. The mischievous fellows have also been known to replant the markers, scattering competitors in all sorts of wrong directions. Rascals. When we finally get into the checkpoint 7, all I can do is drop myself down and wolf down dinner. I do not even wait for the freeze-dried food to fully rehydrate. The crunch adds a little al dente texture to my meal. I somehow manage to drag my lifeless body to one of the two standing tents and promptly fall asleep. It is the deepest sleep I have had all weeks, and I am out like a light for the next 3 hours. I open my eyes and instantly know I have overslept. The soft golden glow of the morning lines the horizon. The look around and realize that I had not bothered to use my sleeping bag and I am lying in an awkward position on the floor of the tent. I hear a familiar voice, Patrick. I had started the day with my competitor, but after the first checkpoint, Lai had powered ahead and left me in his dust. I imagined he must have been close to finishing the stage by now, but there he is on the other side of the tent. We link up with Brighton Steve routes, and together we set off for the final 23 kilometers to camp. Resting up for a few hours always brings much relief, but there is a huge downside. My body screams blue model and refuses to get moving again. My muscles have turned to lead and seized up. My joints creak and burn in red hot agony. It is excruciating to restart the engine and get going again. And as soon as we limp back onto the trail, I begin to lag behind my companions. I know I'm a slow starter, so I let things be. While I'm grateful that the others slow down to accommodate me, I hope I'm not hindering their progress too much. When I have my sights set on a goal and am advancing towards it, anything and anyone not in full alignment is an obstacle that must be overcome. For this reason, I hate being a liability myself and holding people back. At this point, I clearly have a lot to learn, and it would take the rest of the Four Desert series to teach me compassion and gentleness with others and myself. The crisp coolness of dawn gives way rapidly to blazing hotness, and we brace ourselves for another day of scorching conditions. I try not to think about the pain and the hours ahead. It helps that my camera has run out of battery. I feel relieved of the self imposed burden of taking scenic snapshots and compiling visual stories of my race. Too much time is often spent snapping pictures for posterity at the expense of fully being at the in the moment. If people want to see what the Gobi looks like, they can jolly well sign up for the next endurance race. I switch my mind and body to autopilot and trudge on. We are still within the cut of time, but are eager to make it to camp before the sun reaches its zenith. Hong Konger Barry Jane joins us, and our hearts collectively sink when we realize where we are headed. Soon to tower over the four of us is a formidable wall of sand. Over the last hour, we have been heading straight for this imposing chain of sand dunes, a crease of light brown along the horizon. With each closer step, we make out lines snaking lines, which turn out to be the distant footprints of competitors who have gone before us. Even now, as we peer closely, we can see the tiny black dots of people plodding their way through this one last barrier before camp. That there is an additional makeshift checkpoint doling our extra water passage, our looming test. 5 kilometers in a short distance, but 5 kilometers of sand dunes in 50 degrees Celsius with blistered feet after over 230 kilometers in the previous 5 days in varying stages of exhaustion and dehydration can be the straw that breaks the camel's back. The sun beats on us from above and reflects off the ground for a more complete incineration. The sand is so hot it bakes right through the soles of my trail shoes and my double layered socks. So this is what walking on fire feels like. The water in my water bottle is only just short of scalding. From time to time, God turns on the hair dryer and whips it across our faces. I am not sure which is worse, to navigate the dunes in the night with fading torches and risk getting lost, or being in the blistering vehemence of the day and risk running out of water. Next to drowning, being parched to death must be the worst way to die. Sand dunes are exactly as you imagine them to be, soft and powdery, deep and sinking. It is easier, almost fun, to go down them, and I let gravity do the job. Going up is the opposite, a strenuous, painstaking toil that torments every leg muscle. Every step up is followed with a half step backslide. It is imperative to think ahead, for going down the wrong dune and can lead to a long way back up. The key is to work together as a team and scout out the best route forward. In this respect, we perform admirably. As Barry suffers the effects of dehydration, he unselfishly urges us ahead. Patrick should have done of it, would have none of it, and offers to hang back with him. So Steve and I lead the charge, and we follow slightly separate routes. At the top of each reach, the footsteps of dozens of racers spread out before our eyes. By and large, they follow the same path, but occasionally we see evidence of someone or a group attempting a different and hopefully easier bearing. By tracing their footsteps with our eyes, we can see whether they evenly converge or veer off in different directions. And by studying their movements and trying to think two steps ahead, we can make a judgment call on which set of footprints to follow, based on what seems the less taxing. The formula here is not so much to minimize time or distance, but to minimize climb and save energy. To this end, we sometimes succeed and sometimes fail. Each time, Steve and I get to the top, uh, get to the top of the next ridge. We turn around and signal to the other two the better route to follow. This way, we get to ensure that Barry and Patrick always succeed. With this responsibility of finding the best route for our group, I take on these last 5 kilometers with vigor. I give my imagination full rein, putting on my child's hat when sliding down dunes and my crafty hat when skimming the best way up. I quickly discover that the fastest approach is not necessarily the easiest, that the most efficient and the effective way to climb is to take several more tiny steps than fewer big strides. If in doubt, always take double the number of steps you had originally intended. Small steps to success. As I marvel at the truth of this, I recall reading a top singer criticize reality show American Idol. He lamented how the young singers, propelled from unknown greenhorns into overnight stardom, never get to experience the apprenticeship of singing, to master their craft and adjust to life. Demands and responsibilities of being a household name. Conferred instant celebrity status, these individuals have an unrealistic view of their own abilities and how much they have to learn and grow. As a result, most either fall by the wayside and fail to realize their promise or struggle to cope with their newfound fame. In spite of this wisdom and proof that tiny steps work better, it takes all my self restraint and discipline to keep from wanting to bound up each dune. The desire to swiftly conquer an obstacle to get it over and done with as quickly as possible is sometimes too overwhelming. I find this to my cost on those occasions that I let my naive impatience get the better of me, bent over and gasping for breath moments later. I make yet another mental note to keep the big picture in view. It is about making it to camp, not making it over this one dune. This broader task, as well as the constant challenges, absorb me, and I am like the dog that never stops at fetching the bone. It is all about finding a better way each time, down, up, and around sand dunes. Inch by inch, we get better and better. Foot by foot, we get closer to our goal. Though it is still soul destroying to submit a dune full of hope, only to see yet another line of markers. I fortify myself by focusing on our little successes. I silently cheer every little achievement to motivate myself. I turn the challenge into a game of wits to take my mind off our difficulties. By keeping a broader perspective, I learn to hold back on my impulse and impatience. And by focusing on others, I tame my ego. After more than 2 hours out in the unforgiving sand dunes, the flapping tents of camp eventually appear in the distance. It has been close to 30 hours since we started the long stage, and we are almost there. Battered and weary, we are nevertheless beaming as we cross the line together. We have done it. We later discovered that we were among the last to be allowed onto the sand dunes. The hazard of traversing the same area in the blazing midway sun were deemed to be too fraught with danger that subsequent competitors were diverted to a route that ran alongside a road for their safety. Word is also spreading from these varying global positioning system devices that although the stage was marked as 99 kilometers, we in fact covered 110 kilometers or more. Everyone has been really tested over the last few days. People have broken down and cried. Some have gotten lost for hours, and others have ended up in a mix of hallucination and vomiting. But everyone has shown real strength of character. The long stage is always epic, and the mood around the camp is as if the entire race is finished. The event climaxes with the conclusion of this long stage. It is a climax not marked by air punching fists or intense wild celebrations. Rather, it culminates in a newfound respect for the self and the human body. It brings about introspection, quiet thoughtfulness. It grows a brotherhood and understanding among fellow competitors. It fosters awareness, admiration of the soul, and is calm and peaceful. As I sit alone on a dune and watch the soft glow of twilight drip over camp, I reflect on the broader lesson of the race. I really is not about speed, not how fast we go, but how far. Where many push themselves over the edge through relentless rushing, lasting the distance comes through a series of small, slow, seemingly inconsequential steps. My drill during the race is purely to keep putting one foot in front of the other and to keep moving forward. Checkpoints and stage camps become intermediate goals. I take it one day a time and focus on these daily milestones, using them to strengthen my staying power and motivation. Each checkpoint is an indicator of my progress, a small triumph that keeps my spirits up and fills me with the energy needed for the long haul. Two friends use their experiences of childbirth and parenting to underline the import of these short-term objectives. Childhood friend William emails after day one. So your first day must have felt like the longest one ever, especially with so many more to go. Think of it as the equivalent of having a kid. The wonderful experience of childbirth evaporates with the realization that a long, long road lies ahead with significant milestones. toilet training, speaking, writing, marking a phone call. Where are your milestones over the next week? Wherever they are, they will be accompanied by our prayers and well wishes. What we have as we bring up the kids. Singapore based Australian competitor Catherine E. picks up the analogy. Doing the race was just like childbirth. At times when things got really painful, I thought, never again. Once is enough. I guess over time you forget the pain and only remember the fun and good times, because now I would love to do another desert race. And I have 4 children. That is equivalent to a 4 deserts Grand Slam. I roughly estimate that I take about 500,000 steps per race and a further 2 million in preparation. But at any one time, there is only one step that matters, and it is the next one. Repeating that continuously make my dream come alive. Having set the larger ambition, I focus on the little things that get me there. Slowly and steadily, like the tortoise rather than the hare. In moving toward my any goal, it is those baby steps taken one at a time that led to momentous changes. A balancing act. But that is not all. A maturity to pace oneself is synchronous with a maturity to pull back. By this point, a sizable number have dropped out of the Gobi March. In the midst of our celeb celebrate cry mood, we learn about those who have dropped out. Some were pulled out by medical staff or disqualified by organizers, while others chose to discontinue their race. Among the voluntary withdrawals are Rohit Narang, James Wilson, and Michael D. Rohit Narang is my tent mate who is among the last in the whole field to complete each stage. Each day he is physically wrecked and looks like he has been through hell and back. By the time he gets into camp, feeds himself and fixes his feet, most of the tent is already asleep. And he still has to clean himself and sort out his kit for the next day. Every day just comparatively tougher for him as he exerts far more and rests far less than everyone else. Through all this hardship, the essence of this man truly stands out. Despite enduring one of the toughest things he has ever done, Rohit is untiring as he maintains his good-humored and gracious disposition. He plainly does not let his problems get in his way of having a good time and keeping his smile on his face. Michael D is a Singaporean-based American with a successful experience of the Atacama crossing under his belt. Michael is a 3:30 marathoner who has also competed in Ironman triathlons. He is no stranger to endurance events, and through his participation raises funds for various charitable causes. With his solid showing in the first 4 days, I was rather surprised to bump into him in the middle of the long stage feeling and looking rather poorly. But Michael is not one to let minor inconvenience get in his way. True to form, he had picked himself up and summoned up his mental doggedness to reach the next checkpoint. James Wilson is a Singaporean-based Australian affectionately known as Fast Uncle. The Gobi is his first 4 deserts event and he has trained over a year for it. I first met him during a training run along with a couple of other race hopefuls and was immensely struck by his tremendous discipline and marvelous sense of humor. James does not do things by halves and gives his all in whatever he undertakes. In spite of his impressive preparations, he is the first to admit that his goal is to simply stay alive and complete the race. We raced alongside each other for part of stage 3, and his methodical approach and sense of perspective were very much evident in the steady pace he maintained throughout. All three men have hugely successful lives and highly distinguished careers. Their powerful personalities and adroit abilities have taken them up the higher echelons of the corporate ladder, an ultra endurance race in itself. They brilliantly balance work and family to make the time to prepare their bodies and commit to a week-long event. So why did they pull out just when the end was near? How could they fail? The thing is, none of them see themselves as failures. Instead of beating themselves up over not completing the event, they fully accept their own decisions to withdraw. Their maturity comes from having a clear sense of who they are and why there is. They recognize that their identity does not depend on the performance. What good would it serve to push yourself over the edge just to prove something or to indulge your ego? What is the point of completing the event but suffer long term damage? Or worse, where is the justification in crossing the lines of health and safety and be brought home in a body bag? There is a line between resilience and recklessness, between courage and conceit. Playing the edge is a fine balancing act. It demands acute awareness and ego strength. Ego strength can be defined as having a positive understanding about who we are and what our capabilities are. It is a necessary ingredient for us to push the boundaries while knowing when we are pushing ourselves beyond safe limits. Doing the right thing is to be responsible for ourselves and our choices, and responsible to the people in our lives who depend on us. In keeping sight of the bigger picture of what life is all about, these men overcame fear, their initial disappointment with a clear distinction between self and task. They chose to live and compete another day. They knew when to say no, and they dared to say no. So there is a fiery flaming mountains. The Tian Shan mountain range, once of marvelous numerous rivers crossing in the Gobi desert, Gobi March. Competitors amid breathtaking landscape. The welcome sight of a checkpoint is regarded by what lies ahead. Entering the deathly gullies. The sweepers of the Gobi March, it is extremely disheartening when they catch up with us. The dart houses of the Durban Basin. Brighton Steve Rhodes before plunging into the dunes, the final section of the long stage. So that is the end of chapter 2, both of these. And thank you for whoever is there reading along